5, it's 5:47, it's confession time. If you have a tale for us and you fancy a smart speaker, this is what you do. You send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Just like Basil has done with today's tale. Oh, yes, I should say. Definitely unsuitable for anyone eating.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
So sort of PG/12 if you're having tea.
Goodness me.
That's all.
Wow.
Father Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Katie/Susie, whoever's producing, Sister Katie producing today, I wish to confess sin that I have held secret, locked away from the world for more than 30 years. Let me take you back to summer in the mid-1980s when I was on the cusp of becoming a teenager. I spent most of my time at my best friend's house, a shambling old cottage in the Wiltshire countryside with a large rambling garden where we spent our time doing what kids did in the 1980s, which was basically trying not to throw frisbees into a power station.
No, I remember that well.
Well, I didn't do anything like that in the 1980s. And either avoiding or annoying his two older sisters, one of which was turning 18 on the day in question. This milestone was to be marked with a big party and barbecue for her and her friends to enjoy. For some reason, my best friend and I were left in charge of the barbecue. To this day, I'm not sure why, as we were both 12 and no idea how to cook anything.
Truly different times.
But how hard could it be? Well, with a day of utter chaos and party preparations finally finished, the party began and we took our station at the aforementioned barbecue. With expectations of a busy night ahead, we began to cook up the numerous beef and pork products, knowing that stockpiling was essential for the long night ahead. However, after an hour or so, realization dawned on us both that our wares were not in demand, as 18-year-olds seemed only to be interested in two things. One, the opposite sex, and two, diamond white, which was everyone's favourite back in the day. We, of course, were interested in neither. But with our stockpile building, it only seemed right to help ourselves, as it would only go to waste. I'll point out at this time in my life, I was very fit, had a high metabolic rate, and could eat pretty much anything. At a certain point in the evening, we decided we weren't really needed. We were bored, had no idea what was really going on, didn't like the look of anything, so we called it a night and went to bed, with me in a sleeping bag on the floor of my friend's room. An hour or so later, I awoke with a very uncomfortable feeling, hot sweats, and the realization that I needed to get to the bathroom very quickly. So obviously I'm just going to sort of skip over quite a lot of things. I ran down to the bathroom as quickly as humanly possible. Alas, this was not quick enough.
Oh dear.
On opening the door with salvation so close, I proceeded to, shall we say, redecorate the bathroom. I'm aware of the timing of this feature, so we'll leave out any further detail.
Yes, please.
Seeing the devastation in front of me, I did what any 12-year-old would do. I chewed some toothpaste and beat a hasty retreat to the bedroom. All of this was done unseen by anybody. An hour or so later, my friend's sister came into the room and said, "Ugh, I can smell sick," or words to that effect. At this point, I should have admitted my sins. However, she was scary, and I was already knee-deep in deception. So I said that I had been to the bathroom and I saw the carnage too. To solidify my response, I did also mention that I'd seen a very drunk young girl in the area at the time. With this, she left the room and left us to slumber. The next morning, we awoke bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to see the normal devastation a teenage party leaves and to find my friend's older sister marigold-clad and on her knees in the bathroom. That should have been me, obviously, but I hid my shame and we carried on with the day as normal. So, Father Simon, here's the point. I need forgiveness not from my best friend's sister, as to be honest, she and her sister had tormented us both over the years, and this seemed to level the score. Also, I don't ask forgiveness from my friend or his parents, as they were unaffected and they got a clean bathroom out of it. I do, however, beg forgiveness from the inebriated 18-year-old Betsy, who I brought into this story. On admitting my sins to my friend a year or so ago, he told me that not only was Betsy teased for the remainder of her school days for being so inebriated she threw up in her friend's house and then forgot about it, but she was also reminded of the event constantly through her university years. But that is not all.
What?
This was also mentioned in great detail in the speeches on her wedding day, years after the event. For over 30 years, she's been carrying the burden of my deception. For this, I beg forgiveness. So here's a tale, a lie that has kind of really escalated over the years, because it was just a little thing when he was 12. And this story has followed Betsy all her life, straight the way through to her wedding, and it wasn't her at all. It was Basil Fotherington Thomas. That's who it was. The voice of responsibility and moral outrage, Sister Katie.
Yeah, I obviously really feel for Betsy, but I actually have to forgive Basil, because why on earth were 12-year-olds left to do the barbecue unattended?
Yes.
And having been the younger sibling, I know how scary your elder siblings' friends can be. I think I might have lied in the same situation. So, Basil, you're forgiven.
Brother from another
Yes,
mother?
we definitely file this under what did you expect was going to happen? Who we put in charge of the barbecue with all the meat and the burning coals? Oh, the two 12-year-olds. I'll be fine. So, yes, I'm definitely going to forgive it. And also, frankly, if Betsy had lived a life where this was the worst thing that had happened, then it's pretty faultless, I would say. So, definitely forgiven.
OK, it's the people's verdict. Do you forgive Basil, yes or no, on the text? 61054, start your message with Simon, or you can email simon@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Forgive. I'm not sure if we want lots of barbecue confessions.
No, maybe not. Maybe not.
They will tend to be similar to the ones we had today. Maybe wedding speeches.
Yes.
They would be good confession. And if we like it, you get a smart speaker. Basil gets today's smart speaker. Him and his 12-year-old mate in charge of the barbecue. Didn't work very well, although he did eat all the food. Just because he was like an eco-warrior.
Yes.
Basically, though, the bathroom suffered a little bit later on. People's verdict like this.
So totally forgiven, say Vix and Nige. We'd have done the same. Poor lad just didn't want to get into trouble. Joe says definitely forgiven. I'm with Matt and Katie on this one. Well, with the parents, I would never, ever trust my 12-year-old son, no offence, son, love you lots, with a barbecue, let alone around lots of intoxicated 18-year-olds. And finally, Sam in Devisers says totally forgiven. Basil, not faulty.
Basil, not faulty, very good. And if you have a confession, we would love to see it. What you do is you write it out and then you send it on the email to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. It has its own email inbox. confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Everyone that we use, you get a smart speaker. Another confession tomorrow. There we go. ABC on Greatest Hits Radio. I mean, I was talking and it was great. It's just that the microphone wasn't on.
It was so good as well.
It was one of my best links.
I thought so.
Of all time, I think. So it was funny. It was concise. It kind of summed up the global situation.
Everything.
Yeah.
It was just off air.
Oh, dear.
Darn it. Anyway, confession time. Send yours to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Today's comes from Spangle. Thank you, Spangle. Father Matt, and Father Simon, Sister Susie, Sister Katie, whoever's turned up in the confessional collective. Makes it sound very random. My story starts the weekend before my birthday, says Spangle. I'd invited my lovely friend Babs over for supper and had planned dauphinoise potatoes,
Very nice.
fillet of beef and lemon posset for dessert. This is pretty grand. We should get Nigel to recreate this as one of our...
Without the lemon posset. Yeah.
I love a lemon posset.
Why not?
Really?
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
Sounds-
pudding.
Really?
Nice and
It's like a
citrusy.
lemon mousse. What's wrong with you?
Mousse.
Come on.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
Anyway.
Anyway, moving on.
Not the point.
Oh, by the way, yes, it's a bit 12 certificate. Again,
Yeah.
it's a bit 12 certificate,
Again,
this one.
Don't
Yeah.
be eating. Okay?
Particularly if it's a 15 if you're eating.
Right.
Saturday afternoon arrived and the lemon posset was made and safely in the fridge. Everyone loves a posset.
No.
When I started on the dauphinoise potatoes, all was going well until partway through slicing the first potato with my mandolin food slicer. Now, I haven't got one of those, but it's one of those ones with kind of many wires that,
Yes.
Yeah.
that you can slice your potatoes in, hence the mandolin food slicer name. The potato got stuck. Bit of brute force, I thought, and it'll be fine. Though actually not so fine, as blood started to spurt from my finger. I had mandolined my finger. Fast forward to the local A&E department, whilst being bombarded with messages from teenage daughter for images of said mangled body part.
Ugh.
Failure to stem the bleeding resulted in multiple cauterization attempts. The nurse, a lovely lady, commented that if she'd known it would take so many attempts, she'd have offered me pain relief. Well, maybe we could have started there as it was hurting. Now, I may say something about the area that I live in, but I was the second mandolin food slicer incident they had that day.
Yeah. Oh.
Not another one. It's an epidemic of mandolin food slicing injuries. By this stage in the evening, it became apparent that Babs would have to cook her own dinner due to my self-inflicted mutilation. Preparing for her arrival, I got the beef out of the fridge one-handed to bring it up to room temperature. Momentarily distracted, I turned, leaving said beef on the kitchen counter. Now, I've so far failed to mention the other presents in my household. This particular evening was Monty, the 8-month-old gold retriever.
Ah, there it is.
So you've probably guessed what's going to happen next. Whilst I was distracted, Monty took his chance to delicately, and in genuine stark contrast to his usual fast and furious, opportunistic attempts to steal food, lift the £50 piece of prize fillet.
Good
That's
work.
50 quid's worth.
Wow.
50 quid's worth.
50 quid, 50
So
pounds.
it's 50 pounds.
50 pounds. 50
Not 50 pounds.
It doesn't
Weight.
weigh 50 pounds.
No, right,
That'd be like
okay.
that'd be like a cow.
I know, that's why I was impressed.
This is a piece of
How are they getting that in the oven?
beef fillet that costs £50.
50
Wow,
pounds.
still.
In other words, it's expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing something red out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly realised what Monty had chanced upon. Then ensued a clumsy one-handed chase around the dining room. Him with the beef and me with a bleeding finger. Once trapped, he relinquished the prize morsel, probably knowing it was far too good for his needs, although copious amounts of drool, I noticed, were present on the steak. And maybe some grass.
Oh.
And whatever else that was there that Monty might have been eating.
Right.
He did like rummaging in bushes and hedgerows, snuffling everything, and I mean everything, that he might find.
Yeah.
On inspection, I was pleased to see that he had in fact held the morsel incredibly softly. A very delicate dog. But here's the thing, I had nothing else to cook. I couldn't drive at this point due to my earlier injury, so I carefully washed and delicately patted the £50 steak dry. That's a steak that cost £50, it weighed £50. Babs arrived and cooked whilst I directed, and yes, Simon and the Confessions Collective, we cooked the beef and we ate it. There was a small amount of blood which we had removed earlier, although I have to point out that rare steak is obviously loved by many. Anyway, Babs declared it was fantastic, and to this day is none the wiser. Father Simon, I don't seek forgiveness for providing Babs with a delicious piece of beef, but for the fact I failed to disclose the addition of doggy saliva and finger blood, which makes it sound as though it's a specific kind of blood, but actually it's exactly the same. Although in my defence, she is alive and well and showed no ill effects following the consumption of the additional condiment. The mandolin and I have now parted company. It was a painful breakup, and I've managed to hang on to all my remaining body parts since the night in question.
Good.
It is one of those kitchen implements which sounds as though it may well be worth avoiding. But as soon as a mandolin food slice appears in a confession, it's a bit like the beginning of Casualty with a combine harvester in the corner of the field. It's only heading in one direction. Sister Katie.
Yeah, Spangle, I'm not with you here. I'm sorry. I feel like you really could have told Babs that information. Babs would have had a lot of sympathy for you. You've gone through quite a serious injury, the second of the day. This is a common thing that people go through. I just think you should have disclosed it. Babs maybe could have got some other food. You could have had the steak another time. You could have got a takeaway. Babs would have sorted it out, so you should have told her.
A bit of steak, bit of blood, brother from another gutter.
It never ceases to surprise me the number of people who are writing in confessions that involve a £50 hunk of meat and their dog.
a hunk of burning meat.
Hunk of meat and their dog. Always put the dog in the other room. But let's be honest here, Babs didn't spot anything, did she? She didn't even spot that Spangle, her finger was hanging off. So I think for that reason, it's not Spangle's fault.
Oh.
And therefore, I forgive.
Forgiven, okay.
Yeah.
People's Verdict 61054. Start your message with Simon. Do you forgive Spangle, yes or no? 61054. First word is Simon. The People's Verdict is on the way. People's Verdict, here it comes.
So Vicky says forgiven. It was Spangle's birthday. Her plans were ruined. Her finger was hanging off. And to top it all, the dog almost made off with the dinner.
Yes.
Plus, it cost £50. Of course she's forgiven. Prunella says not forgiven. Should have let Babs know so she could give it an additional wash. I've parted ways with a slicer for similar reasons.
Yes.
And Royston says Spangle's absolutely gets my forgiveness. I went to my brother's house armed with 6 sirloin steaks to make a meal for us all, only to have a very similar outcome. A quick swill under the tap, and no one to this day is any the wiser.
I'm not sure whether to ask for confessions revolving around mandolin food slices, because they're only going to go one way. But your tales from the kitchen may be confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Spangle gets today's smart speaker, and we'll have another one for you tomorrow. Don't forget, if you're sitting on a confession, a rather fine tale, let us entice you to send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk, because you'll end up with one of those smart speakers. There you go. They'll bit sluggish on the carts there. Anyway, we've got an 8-track cartridge that we're firing, so that's why it's a little bit slow. Anyway, yes, you send in your confession. If we use it, you get a smart speaker. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Matt's got his appropriate. He has a special notebook and pen.
Yes, need to have that ready to go.
Just making notes as we go through.
Always the pro.
Lily sends in tonight's confession. Thank you, Lily. Father Simon, Mad Cat Matt, and Super Sister Katie Susie from the pub. So Katie Susie is your name.
Yeah,
from now on.
absolutely.
Okay, that works. I'm writing to you today to make a confession with which I've been burdened for over 20 years. There's a word in this confession that has never been used in any confession ever.
Wow.
Okay.
And a word I can use, so it's fine.
Okay.
Although I now reside in the UK, all that time ago I was living in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. My husband's job had taken us there, and as I am a teacher, I was soon able to find work in a lovely primary school. Now, that time, Abu Dhabi was a lot smaller and less well known than it is today. It was a fabulous, lively, bustling city and a wonderful place to live. But this was way before the lights of the Emirates Palace Hotel, the Yas Marina,
No.
and the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which was the
yes,
Grand Prix
no,
in
that
Abu Dhabi. I've always been an avid radio listener. But there are only a couple of stations to tune into which broadcast in English, as this was long before listening online was an option. The station had several DJs, obviously no one of your caliber, Simon.
Oh,
It does-
obviously
it
not.
says that.
Bonus points.
And these DJs multitasked whilst broadcasting. They played the music, read the weather reports, mainly hot and sunny.
Yeah.
Yeah, the outlook, hot and sunny, with increasing chances of heat and sun.
Yeah.
As a possibility by Thursday. So they did that. They answered the phones. They organised the competitions, and they generally did everything. A very busy bunch. I am in no way suggesting that this would be an appropriate staffing level for a station as fabulous as Greatest Hits Radio.
Of course not.
Okay. Well, at the time, I loved a competition, Father Simon, and I had been lucky enough to win a few times. When the floating bookshop came to town, which was run by a charity, I won a voucher for knowing that they had books on board in 142 different languages. In truth, I rummaged in my school bag and found the answer in my paperwork for the class trip to the ship, which I was organising for the following week. On another occasion, I won a meal for two at a super Spanish restaurant. As the food was covered by the voucher, my husband and I spent our money on drinks and enjoyed some special lemonades. So, it was the weekend, and I was in the car and on my way to complete the weekly shop. I turned on the radio and caught the tail end of an announcement of a new competition. My ears pricked up. The prize was to have a chef from one of the local hotel restaurants come to your house and cook you a terrific, tasty meal. In his broad Kiwi accent,
Oh!
Here we go.
Go for it, Simon.
Yeah.
The DJ said, all right, mate. So now, look, good day. All you have to do is call me at the radio station and tell me the most unusual thing, all right, that you have in your fridge.
Okay, just saying good day doesn't make that. Definitely doesn't make it Kiwi.
I can't do well, I can't do any of them.
No.
But, you know. Anyway, what's the most unusual thing you got in your fridge? That's easy, says Lily, because I've got rabies in my fridge. There you go. That's the word that's never turned up before.
Okay.
I feel as though I should explain, says Lily, that when we moved to Abu Dhabi, rabies was one of the vaccinations that we had to have. It was delivered over a course of 3 injections. We had the first 2 before leaving the UK, but needed a 3rd dose 6 months later. So we were given our vaccines to take with us, and we were told to keep them in the fridge until needed, but to make sure they were kept well away from cheese or any chili sauce. I mean, obviously, because you don't want them contaminated. This cheese is off. Tastes a little bit of rabies vaccine. Cheerfully, I called the radio station, confident that surely no one could beat rabies in the fridge as an unusual fridge item. Within a few rings, DJ Kiwi answered his own phone. Again, it's poor staffing levels. Surprisingly, he wasn't impressed with my rabies in the fridge anecdote. It turned out he wanted a list of unusual ingredients to cook with, not just weird things that weird people kept in their fridges. Mortified, I rang off, pleased that at least I wasn't on the air. However, my relief was short-lived. After the ad break, DJ Kiwi comes on again. G'day, all right, mate? He mentions the competition again, and after explaining the rules, found it absolutely hilarious to say, now don't do what Lily did. She called in to say that she had rabies in her fridge. I mean, come on, good day.
Good day.
I was very embarrassed, but this is Father's Day where it gets expensive. I need to seek forgiveness, obviously, from overworked DJs who had to put up with gormless folk like me, who didn't listen as attentively as they should have done. I would also like to beg forgiveness from my husband, who heard from many of his friends and colleagues saying, was that your wife who was mentioned on the radio the other day? But most of all, I would like to humbly beg forgiveness from the poor woman who was at the dentist that morning, about to have root canal work, when her dentist suddenly burst into loud and terrifying maniacal laughter, and then dropped and broke his drill.
Oh!
The small, shiny, high-pitched one that makes you howl. Because that was my friend, Dick the dentist, who used the radio station as calming music in the background to help patients to relax. Actually, personally, I find that quite offensive. We're not background music.
No.
On hearing the rabies in the fridge comment from the DJ, he guessed instantly that it was me, as I often manage to embarrass myself in many ways on a regular basis. Crash bang wallop goes the drill. That'll be a new expensive one. Thank you very much indeed. And one customer who was going to have to wait a whole lot longer for her root canal work. And if you've psyched yourself up, that's a very frustrating thing. This, says Lily, is the first time I have dared to attempt to win anything from the radio since. And I prostrate myself in front of you and the juggernauts of justice in the hope of absolution. Very nice fade.
Yeah, very smooth.
Lily wants some forgiveness. Let's see if she gets it from Sister Katie.
Do you know what, Lily? I am going to forgive you because I appreciate people like you, the people that get in touch, that call in, that support the radio station.
Good production.
Though I am slightly concerned about your three-worder earlier who said that they're at the dentist. So we might have just repeated the same outcome.
Yes, yeah, I can see what you're saying there. Okay, brother from another gutter.
So, things to keep in the fridge. I remember going to a house party many years ago with my camera, and I'd left my camera at this party, and then it turns out the camera had been put in the fridge for 3 months, and nobody'd seen it. So, keeping things in the fridge, rabies in the fridge, disposable cameras in the fridge. What on earth is going on? I'm going to forgive. That made no sense.
Absolutely no sense at all.
Brilliant.
People's verdict on our rabies in the fridge confession. How about that? Do you forgive? Yes or no? It's entirely down to you. 61054. Start your message with Simon. Tonight's confession came from Lily. It was her rabies in the fridge confession and the disastrous impact it had on Dick the dentist. An interesting tale. And the people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So Faith says, not forgiven. Ouch, ouch, ouch. My dentist phobia lives on. Yes. Jack says, forgiven? Oh my gosh, I've just spilled my tea. It might not have been what the DJ was looking for, but she absolutely deserved a prize for that. And Tilly says, absolutely forgiven. That's not the word I was expecting, Simon. Definitely a radio first.
I think it probably was. Your story would be very welcome. Confessions at greatesthitradio.co.uk. 5:47's confession time. If you have a story for us, we'd like to offer you a smart speaker in return. It's an old-fashioned trading system, basically. You send us a good one, we read it out, you get a smart speaker, and you send it to confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Matt was looking at me as though I'd said something stupid.
No, that was just my normal face.
Made a change. Okay, Here comes today's tale. Stand by for your verdict, please. This one comes from Sheila, Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Katie, Susie. My confession is going back a good 32 years, if not longer. My dad had an old school friend, Peter, who had emigrated to Australia when I was a baby and had arrived in the UK for 6 months. Peter needed a bass for these 6 months, and my dad volunteered me to have Peter use my spare room as that bass.
Fine.
Thanks, Dad. I kindly offered to cook Peter an evening meal when he was here, as it seemed silly both of us cooking separate meals. Unfortunately, I thought I'd do a foodie one because it's a foodie Thursday.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Does that mean that...
It's a little bit unpleasant.
Oh, right, okay.
Unfortunately, Peter did not like my cooking and did nothing but complain about my meals whenever I cooked, saying, "Listen, mate, it's too much salt, overcooked. Hey, Sheila, this has got this taste. This meat is tougher than a wallaby's tail."
This is Pretoria, is he? Yeah.
"Oh, look, mate, this is undercooked. This could have done with more gravy. Struth, mate."
Oh dear.
Peter was a complainer.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Then more annoying remarks began. Peter started telling me that my dog, Ben, got a better dinner than he did. And Ben's dinner smelt a lot nicer. This guy, Peter.
Wow.
This annoyed me a great deal, says Sheila. You can understand why, and played on my mind every time I cook Peter a meal. So I don't know why, but just out of the blue, and for some reason, when I was feeding Ben, my dog, and these big chunks of meat came sloppily out of a large tin, all I kept thinking was, well, Peter says he thinks this smells nice and seems a lot nicer than what I actually cook him. Well, let's put that to the test, shall we? So into a slow cooker, I added diced carrots, onions, potatoes. I added an oxo cube and a few mixed herbs and let the slow cooker do its bit. When it was all cooked, I opened another tin of dog food, just like the one I opened earlier, with nice big chunks of meat. If you saw the dog food scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where Brad Pitt opens the can of dog food and drops it whole into the dog bowl, it's a bit like that. I mixed the dog food with the cooked vegetables. I rolled out some short crust pastry, which I already had in the fridge. I made this lovely looking pie, first class, I must say. And when complaining Peter, the whinging Aussie, came home, a lot later than usual, I dished him up his pie. He said, "What pie is it?" I thought, I can't see dog food, pie and vegetables, can I? So I said, "It's beef and vegetables, Peter." Anyway, Peter ate the pie. Couldn't believe it. Did I hear him moan? I did not. I dished it up, and instead, all he said was, "Any chance of any seconds, mate?" "Oh, look, fair dues, decent grub, Sheila," he said. And also, he added challengingly, "You say it's beef? Where did the beef come from then?" I thought he was getting suspicious, and I said, "Oh, it's Australian beef. It's come from Australia." He grinned contentedly. He thought his point had been made.
Okay.
I got away with it because I didn't eat the pie myself. I told him I'd already eaten early because I was hungry. Peter asked to have the remaining of the pie for his dinner tomorrow, and he said it was the best meal I'd cooked, and so on. I made sure I gave my dog Ben all of Peter's food that night. Yeah. How I kept my mouth shut, I don't know. I so much wanted to tell him that I'd given him a dog food pie, being a whinging Aussie. Hey, I've never told anyone this, never told anyone a soul about this cooking monstrosity. But every time I go shopping and pass the pet food aisle and see tins of dog food, I have this great feeling of guilt that comes over me. I feel it was time to confess what I did this evening many years ago, just so I can get this guilt to go away. I feel much better. I'm not sure why I feel bad about it, but I still do. So thank you for your entertainment in the afternoon, says Sheila. Well, thank you very much, Steve, for your confession. Oh, that's enough of that. Anyway, very nice combination of sounds.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
I mean, so I'm kind of thinking that Peter had it coming, really. If he kept on going on about how much nicer the dog food sounded and tasted and smelt, then why don't you just serve it to him?
Leading the jury somewhat.
Yes, I am actually. It's got nothing to do with
influenced.
Sister Katie, Susan.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think if that's the thing that made Peter stop complaining, then he seems a pretty happy customer. And also the additions sound quite nice. The pastry, the veg, you kind of went out of your way to still make it quite a nice dinner. So, Sheila, you're forgiven. You need not be stressed.
Dog food pie or nut roast, Matt?
I'll nut roast, because Nige, I'm sure, is going to startle us with how fabulous it is.
I think you're probably right.
I think I'm going to say that no one is going to be not forgiving tonight. Everyone's going to forgive Sheila because, frankly, the whinging Aussie, had it coming. And who asks anyway? Who asks where the beefs come from? No one ever. Yeah, it comes from cows. No one's ever said to me,
Australian cows.
Where did the beef come from? I don't know.
Tastes like home.
Got it in the supermarket. So, yes, forgiven.
All right, okay, very good. Thank you very much. People's verdict, please. It's entirely down to you. 61054. First word is Simon. Do you forgive Peter? Yes or no? Well, tonight's confession came from Sheila and the story of her dog food pie for complaining Australian Peter. And the people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
As we predicted, overwhelmingly people are forgiving. So Kerry in Willenhall says, forgiven. I too cooked a dog food stew for my ex. Watched him eat it up and he loved it. Maria, totally forgiven. She made him eat his words, didn't she? Good for her. And finally, Andy from Wallasey says, forgiven. Dad's chum showed a complete lack of pedigree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that...
Very good, I thought.
Good. Anyway, it means that Sheila gets today's smart speaker, and if you fancy one for next week, well, sit down in front of that old laptop or computer or something and send us a confession. You send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.